Assalamu alaikum. This video is for people who want to understand what they're reading. So do you know how to read Quran, but you don't understand what you're reading? The majority of Muslims aren't Arab, so Arabic is not their primary language, and although they might know how to read Quran, they don't understand what they're saying. So where do we start? This video talks about an approach where we learn the top 150 words in the Quran, and these account for 50% of the words in the Quran. So by starting with the most commonly occurring words, we'll be learning a large majority of the words in the Quran, and we are going to learn some basic lessons, some basic grammar along the way, because we're going to focus on the words, but you still need to know some of the grammar about putting those words together, and we're going to be learning using the Quran as an example. So this is a summary of the 150 words we'll be covering in this course. So you can see the words are broken down by category. There are 26 names, nouns, and objects. So examples of those are the word Allah, which occurs this many times, the word Rabb, which occurs that many times. And these 26 words, when you count all their occurrences, they total nearly 9,000 occurrences in the Quran, and so on. So you can see the next category is pronouns. There are 5 of the top pronouns: you, all, he, they, we. They're not all the pronouns. These are the ones we're going to be covering. These 5 alone account for this many occurrences in total. And so there's 150 words in total. And when you combine all their occurrences, you get about more than 50,000 of the approximately 80,000 words in the Quran. So more than 50% of the words are these words. And in the next 4 slides, we'll be having a look at what are those words in a bit more detail. So these are the first 30 words from our list. This column here is how many times each of the words occur. So you can see Lord, Rabb occurs this many times, angel this many times, and so on throughout. This count includes all the forms. So if there are plurals of some of the words, which we'll be covering in a lesson, this includes the plural form and the singular form of the nouns. Some of the nouns don't have plural forms, like Allah does not have plural form. So, but yeah, some of the words do, like malaika is for angel plural, malak is angel. That includes both occurrences there. The next set of words in the pronouns, these are the pronouns we spoke about earlier. And then here we have attached pronouns, which aren't words in themselves. These 3 dots mean they're attached to the end of words. They can be attached to nouns and verbs. It sounds a little bit complicated. We're going to see examples shortly, but just keep in mind these are just attached pronouns, and they have these meanings here. In English, these are separate words like there and them, but to show the same thing in Arabic, you attach him or hum to a word to make it there or them. And we're going to see examples of that soon. The next 30 or so words, they're broken down by, these are sort of joining words. These appear thousands of times combined. There are demonstrative pronouns, so this, that, those. There are others, but again, these are the main ones. There's relative pronouns. They appear this much. There's lots of ways of asking questions in the Quran. In Arabic, sorry. There's probably 20 or 30 ways. These are the main ways of asking, the ways that appear in the Quran. Lots of ways of emphasizing things in Arabic, and these are the main ways. And there's lots of conditional type statements, if, or, except, those sort of things. These are all the main ones here. So the next category is negation. So there's lots of ways of negating things in Arabic, and these are the main ways, and they're the counts there. Then we have a miscellaneous section. So this is these words, the, and so, they occur thousands of times each. They're not counted. This means it's a prefix, so it occurs at the start of the word. It's not a word in itself, but that means that occurs a lot. And then for the remaining sort of half of the words, the last 70 or so words, these are under the category root words. And it does sound a little bit complicated. It is the most complex part of the course. So root words covers many forms of each of the words. We're going to see an example on the next slide. But this includes verbs and nouns and adjectives and commands. these three words for, we're going to see an example on the next slide. So just finishing off, this is the remainder of the word count, and these are all root words, and we're going to see an example. So this is an example of what we mean by root word. So the example here is nasara, which the root word is help, to help. And you can see with the same root three letters, you have lots of ways of showing past tense verbs. In English, it's all helped. So a past tense version of help would be helped. So helped, helped, helped. It doesn't matter if you're saying he helped or she helped, it's the same word. In Arabic, it differs slightly. So there's rules around what it means to have he helped versus she helped and so on. So these are all from the same root word. Um, in Arabic, past and future tense are combined. It's called the imperfect tense, and these are the examples of helped or helping or help in the future and in the present. And with the same word as well, you can see this is sort of a passive tense. So nusira, so you can see here it's nasara, he helped. To show passive, he was helped, you say nusira. So it looks a little bit different. In English, you would just say he was helped to show he's being helped, or he was helped. In Arabic, the sort of the vowels vary a little bit, and this course will sort of help you to identify which form we're talking about. So that with the same root words, you can also command, you can ask for help, and that's the way it's commanded. It also covers non-verbs, so helper, nasir, helpers, nasirin, all from the same person being helped, mansur. Um, there's the noun assistance, as in help, nasr, helper, and so on. So this is all from, when we look at the word counts previously for the root words, it includes all of these variations of a word, and this course will help you identify. So it does seem a little bit overwhelming, but it is actually helpful. The three Once you know the three root letters of a word, you'll be able to identify how the word occurs. So it actually helps you learn a lot at the same time. So these are some examples, more examples of some of the root words and their common usages. The good news is a lot of the words, they occur a limited number of times. So the words include, or the forms include nouns. So you can see here for these root words, there's a lot of usage of them as nouns. So knowledge, belief, disbelief. There's also verbs, so يعلمون, they know, يؤمنون, they believe, يسمعون, they hear. There's some commands. Some of the words, the root word occurs a lot as a command, like اعبدوا ربكم, worship your Lord, that's a command. Um, there's some root words that occur a lot in the plural form, so ظلم, which means oppression or darkness or wrongdoing. ظالمون is wrongdoers. ظلمات is darknesses, plural of darkness. There are some attributes, so attributes of Allah. So Sama is the root word. Samir is the all-hearer. Hakim or Al-Hakim is the all-wise. So there's attributes there. There's also comparison type words. So A'lamu, most knowing, or Ahsana, the best or better. So all of these forms account to the word count of that word. So it includes all the forms there. And this video is really an introduction video. It's really to help you know that there are root words and to identify the type of root word that's occurring, so you can understand what's the translation of the Quran. So how useful is knowing the top 150 words? We've spoken a lot about those 150 words. We've given some examples of root words. How useful is it to know that, to understand Quran? So this is a page from the Quran. This is page 61. It's just an example page. And what we're going to do, we're going to highlight where that 150 words occur on this page. So you can see here, these are the words in green. These are from our 150 top 150 words. So you can see they occur quite a lot. This is just an example page. It's going to vary page by page, but you can see for this page, there's whole chunks of text that are just the 150 words. And that's excellent for us to help understand. It sort of reinforces the approach. You start with the most commonly occurring words. It's more than 50% of the Quran, so this is a good indication. You can even see here, this whole verse is from the 150 words. So that we're going to actually drill down into this verse on the next page. But just to give you this is just to give you an understanding of how would I go about learning Arabic. You would start with 150 words, and then it becomes easier to fill in the gaps. So it's just once you've learned 150 words, you would just start to learn an extra word here or there, and you just build up your vocabulary. You're not going to understand Arabic overnight. You're going to start with a base and then gradually learn the words one at a time. And you can even see the first couple of words, they're names of prophets, so you probably already know them. So if you know all the green words, the words that we're covering, this is Ibrahim, Ismail, Ishaq, Yaqub, Al-Asbat. So these are some prophets, Musa, Isa. Um, this is a good illustration of the power of the 150 words. The next slide we're going to drill down into this whole verse, and we're going to break it down and get some lessons from it. Okay, so this is the verse that was on the previous page that we highlighted, where each one of the words is from our 150 word list. So you can see how shall Allah guide a people who disbelieved after their disbelief? كيف يهدي الله قوما كفروا بعد إيمانهم, and had witnessed that the messenger is true and clear signs has come to them, and so on. So this is one verse. Each one of these words is from our word list, and there's actually hundreds of these examples. We're going to be giving all the examples we give will be like this. Each of the words in each example will be from our 150 word list. We're not going to show you verses where there's half of the words are on our list and half aren't, because that's not as helpful. If by showing examples where all the words are from our word list, it'll reinforce. So whenever you see a lesson, it'll help you remember the word list. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how the words map. So you can see Gaifa is word 54 in our word list. Yahdi is from a root word Huda, word 142. Allah is word number 1, and so on. So you can see each one of these words is from our word list. The word list, so that there's two colors here. The blue is are the words that are from the root words. So you can see Huda, Gafara. This is from the root word, and it's being used in different ways. So here it's being used as a verb, whereas here it's being used as a noun, and so on. So we're going to be covering that a bit later. Whereas the grey words, the ones that aren't root words, the first 80 or so words from our word list, these are very straightforward. They're always the same. The blue words, there's always a bit of variation. With the grey words, Kaifa is always Kaifa, Allah is always Allah, Qawman is always Qawm. There is another version of Qawm here, Al-Qawm, the people, but you can see it's pretty much always the same. The grey words are always the same. We're going to be spending more time on the blue. That's where more of the rules are. If you look at any Arabic course, they spend a lot of time on verbs and root words because that's where most of the complexity is. The grey words, it's just a one-to-one translation. So you can see there. So if you look at the basic translation, you would get how guide Allah people disbelieve after believe there or them. So you can see that's different to this. So the first step is we need to know the meaning. We need to know the basic meaning, but there's a bit of a step to turn these sort of raw words into a sentence here. The next slide is going to introduce you to 10 lessons. So we need to know how to put words together, and that's pretty much grammar. So we need to cover some grammar. Knowing the words in isolation won't give you this meaning. You'll kind of know what the verse is saying. Some verses will be more obvious than others. So here it says, Allah not guide the people wrong. You can kind of know that it's Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people, but without some basic lessons in grammar, you're not going to be able to get the full meaning. So we have to cover some grammar. So the next slide is going to cover that. So we said previously that knowing the basic word translation is not enough. Knowing the basic word translation of each word individually won't enable you to put a word won't be able to construct the sentence by itself. You need to know some rules of grammar in Arabic. And we're not going to focus, we need to know enough grammar. We're not going to go into, this is not a full grammar course. This is not a detailed grammar course. It's just enough for you to understand some basic rules. So there are 10 grammar rules we're going to be covering. This verse actually highlights about 7 of those rules in action. We're going to step through this verse again with a grammar lens. So the first rule is you need to know how to identify a word that's a verb. So in this case, this lesson number 6. We've got 10 lessons which we're going to go through. Lesson 6 is about present and future tense verbs. So you need to know verbs can have different tense, and this is a current or a future. So this is guide and this is guide. So that's lesson number 6. There's another lesson here. The translation is how shall Allah guide a people? But in the Arabic, you see the word guide, Allah, people. So you can see the verb actually comes before. In the translation, it's Allah guide a people, Allah guide a people, but here it's guide Allah people. So in Arabic, in a verb, most verb sentences, the verb appears before the doer and the one it's being done against. So this is called a subject and this is an object. It sounds a little bit complicated. In this case, Allah is the subject and He's guiding a people, that's the object. So that's another lesson you need to know. Otherwise, you just won't be able to translate. If you just look at word for word, it'll be how guide Allah people. It's how does Allah guide a people? Or how can Allah guide a people or shall guide a people? So that's lesson number 9 out of our 10 lessons. So that's 2 of the lessons we're seeing already in action. You need to know how verbs are used. The same lesson here, this is the same lesson about past tense. So this is actually past tense verb. This was present, so guide. Here kafaru, you need to be able to know that this is disbelieve, so it's past tense. So it's the same lesson, lesson number 6. The next lesson you can see here, imanihim. There's a little him there. That's not part of the root word. The root word was amana, which is believe or belief. Him, we're attaching a him to iman. So what's happening there? It basically means it's a possessive pronoun. It means their belief. So there's a lesson around how do you show ownership of nouns, their something. You add a him to it or a hum to it. So that's lesson number 2. The next lesson is around is. So here the translation is the messenger is true. There's no is in Arabic. It's ar-rasula haqqu, haqqun. So the messenger is true. Where's the is? It's just the way you show an is relationship is just by the vowels in this verse. So it's not immediately obvious, but this is one of the lessons we'll be covering. This is lesson number 3 out of the 10 grammar lessons, the is relationship. The next lesson is around attaching pronouns to verbs. So you can see ja'ahum, the translation is come to them, wa ja'ahum, and come to them. Where's the them? It's actually attached to a verb. Here we had him attached to a noun, which means their belief. Here, the him and the whom, they're pretty much the same word. In this case, it's their belief. In this case, and in the ja'ahum, it's them. So that's another lesson we'll be covering to show how to use pronouns with verbs. You need to know about plurals. So we've sort of covered around plural. There's lots of rules around making a word plural. This is an example of plurals. So this is signs, clear signs. The translation, waja'ahum, come to them, clear signs. The translation is a little bit backwards, but it's waja'ahum, come to them, clear signs. So clear signs, that's a plural. There's a lesson around plurals. And the last lesson that's evident in this verse is adjective. So al-qawm al-zalimin, wrongdoing people. The way you show adjectives, so this is a noun. That looks like a noun, that looks like a noun, but this is actually describing this. So it's a people that are wrongdoing, the wrongdoing people. So there is a lesson around how do we show adjectives in Arabic. So you can see there are a few other lessons. These aren't all the lessons, but you can just see this one verse. It's going to cover 7 out of our 10 lessons in Arabic grammar. And you can see you need to know it. You can't. There's no way around not knowing these rules. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to understand the Quran. So these are all the lessons. We covered 7 of them in the previous slide. We didn't cover the of lesson. So messenger of Allah, how do you show the of? There's no specific word in Arabic of, but it's just the arrangement of messenger and Allah. How do you show the of? We didn't really cover verbs in the first person, second person, third person, I versus you and they. We'll be covering that. And we also didn't cover commands. How do you make a verb an order or a command? So this is a summary. So throughout the course, we need to learn these 10 lessons and we need to learn the 150 words. That's the purpose of the course. We're going to be learning 150 words, but to use those words, you need to know how to use them these are the main lessons. These aren't all the lessons, these aren't all the grammar that you need to know with Arabic. Arabic is quite complex. There are a lot more rules that we haven't covered here. But these are the ones that occur the most, the most prominent rules that we need to cover. Okay, we want to summarize this intro video and we want to finish by asking how is this video and how is this approach different to other ways of understanding Quran? So the first thing that's different is we focus on listening and reading. So the whole course is about understanding the Quran by listening and reading. We are not going to be covering speaking Arabic or writing Arabic. We're not going to be creating our own Arabic because that's not helpful to understand Quran. It's not the most efficient way to understand Quran. So we're going to be focusing solely on listening and reading Quran rather than speaking Arabic and writing Arabic. Then the next thing is we're going to be using the Quran. So we're not going to introduce any other text or examples. We're not going to be creating like common day examples like Ahmad went to the mosque or the keys are on the table. We don't need to create other examples because all the examples are from the Quran. And those examples that I gave, keys and mosque and table, those everyday words don't occur that often in the Quran anyway. So we're just going to be using the Quran to understand the Quran. As we've spoken about, we're going to be starting with vocabulary. So we're going to be starting with 150 words and we're going to learn grammar along the way. We're not going to start with heavy grammar. We're going to learn just enough grammar to help us get by in putting the 150 words together. So there is some grammar. There's about 10 lessons we're going to be covering, but for the most part, it's about building up our vocabulary to start as a base foundation. As we've spoken about, we're going to focus on the commonly occurring words in the Quran. We want to understand the Quran, so we want to know the common words in the Quran, which is different to understanding the everyday common words in a language. So if you're going to learn a language, you might start with things like shapes and colors and numbers and greetings and so on. That's good for learning a language generally, but for understanding the Quran, shapes, colors, numbers, they don't occur that often in the Quran. Maybe a few times colors and numbers and shapes, but for the most part, these aren't common words in the Quran. So we're really going to be focusing on the commonly occurring words in the Quran. We're going to be focusing on the common word usage and concepts. So when we summarize the 150 words and the 10 lessons of grammar, there's a lot of compromises we've made along the way. We've chosen the things that occur the most. So there are rare concepts and rules that don't appear that often in the Quran, but they're important to understand in Arabic. So for example, in English, there's singular and plural. In Arabic, there's singular and plural, but there's also something called dual when you're talking to two specific people. So that dual form of words, when you're speaking to two people, that doesn't occur that often in the Quran. It does occur sometimes, but it's not that common and it's too complicated for this intro course. So we're not going to be covering dual form as an example. Another thing we're not going to be covering is the feminine form. So it doesn't occur that often in the Quran where Allah speaks to two women or three women or women. It doesn't occur that often in the Quran, so we're not going to be covering it, even though it does happen, but we've made some compromises and we're not going to be focusing on that. The last point is we're going to learn using examples from the Quran, and we're going to be specific about the examples we choose. We're going to be careful about the examples we choose. We're not going to choose random verses, or we're not going to choose verses that you might have memorized, like Allahu Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Allahu Samad. Samad, for example, doesn't occur that often in the Quran. So we're not going to introduce verses where some of the words don't occur in the Quran. We're going to try and pick verses and examples where all the words occur from our 150 word list, and that will help us reinforce what we're learning. So these are 6 sort of approaches or principles we've taken to help us learn, and it's hopefully the most efficient way. It's not the most complete way, it's not the most exhaustive way, but it's really about how do we understand Quran in the quickest way possible with the basics of grammar and focusing on the top 150 words.